My name is Dr. Wilson Trevino, and I am actually a Kennesaw graduate. I studied political science here. And what's interesting is every time I come back to campus and I look around, I think to myself, you know, when I was here as a student, I knew a lot more than I know now. I don't know what Einstein always says, the more I learn, the less I know. When I finished here at Kennesaw, I went on to Auburn and I received my MPA, and then I got my PhD there. And I am interested, and have always been interested, in institutions, public institutions, how they deal, they relate. I also work down at the legislature, and they say that old saying, the more things change, the more they stay the same. So it's always funny, I always kind of poke my head in during the session, and it's like the same old thing happens over and over again. So sometimes we forget and we lose that perspective in the things that happen. Let me show you these two little videos so you'll know the group that I am talking about. Like the Monty Python series, now for something completely different. You might ask yourself, what is it that this has to do with public administration? And I'll be glad at the end of the presentation, or if you see me at dinner, give me your email and I'll send you a copy of my paper in order to share that with you. I am interested in public institutions, and as you have known, the last decade, there was a recent article, I think 2010, in the spring edition, that looked at an analysis of all the articles of public administrations and where some of the issues that are happening. And what has really happened in the last, since the millennium, is we've seen a tremendous amount of growth in government services. And it's partly a result of reaction to things. You had, of course, 9/11, you had Katrina, you had the oil spill, you have a lot of things that government's been trying to deal with and find a solution to our social problems. Because of this growth and this change, you have also seen there's been an overstretch in our responsibility in these areas. So many different areas, there have been cutbacks, and there have been kind of voids, and there has been windows that have been kind of left alone, little areas that have not been touched upon. So what I was curious, and what I've been curious is looking, since we have a strong non-for-profit emphasis here in the program at Kennesaw State. And when I was here, they did not have an MPA program. I probably would have gotten my MPA here. A lot of times, these programs are kind of filling the niches of societies. The earlier presentations were talking about quality of life, and I think quality of life is a lot more than necessarily economic development, infrastructure. You have to look at the entire area. How is it that you're able to build a community? Robert Putnam has written a lot about this question of social capital. How do we develop and evolve and really create a social capital in our communities in a time that we are having limited resources? So I, last year, attended over 500 different events around town, theater, plays, concerts, and really active in the community. But this group, gloATL, throughout its existence since 2009, I have seen that it kind of had a certain synergy, something that was different than any other group. As you can see, it's a contemporary performance company. So they have these different programs that they do around town. But I was struck by that traditional means you get a ticket, you go see a show, and then you leave. You really saw a diversity of audiences that came out. You really saw a connectiveness, a piece of community. And I was interested in, what is it that makes them unique? So I looked at this organization, gloATL, which is a nonprofit, and looked at it through the lens of three different areas, streams of our literature. Looked at it as a organizational structure or public institution, nonprofit. Looked at the leadership, and then looked at the organizational culture, and in an area that has been something that there's been a lot of talk about in the literature, and some of our presenters have talked about, this question of public entrepreneurs that really are finding something that we need to do as a collective society and actually going out and doing it. So what I did was I went and asked and looked into this organization, gloATL. Now the name is derived from a Dutch word. Glo means that it's a group of people that are gathered together to share an experience. And ATL is, of course, from Atlanta, ATL. And if you've seen a lot of the songs or the airport, you know, down in the dirty, dirty ATL. So what is it that makes this organization, this public institution, really thrive when so many organizations are not surviving? This last week, as a matter of fact, here in our community, if you are from Marietta, the theater in the square, which has been a part of Marietta, closed their doors after 30 years. You see that in all different areas of these different cultural organizations, artistic organizations. You see them folding time and time again. And why is that? Well, one of this is that the traditional means, the way that they seek funding and they seek ways to survive and really exist in this environment are not working. So they have to be innovative and creative. So in looking at this organization, gloATL, I decided to look at 3 individuals, and I did a structured interview and basically asked them questions about the institution, the mission, how is it or what is it that makes them tick. Laura Stallings, who is the principal and the founder, choreographer, and also the dance maker, and she, as a matter of fact, has a current residency here on campus at Kennesaw State, was one of the main principals that I interviewed and talked to. She has a traditional study career in dance. She studied ballet. She worked at several different ballet companies, and she had gotten a residency with the Atlanta Ballet. And a few years ago, when she came to this residency, she created a innovative program show with Big Boy, which is a local rapper. So she took the music of contemporary rap and then took contemporary traditional ballet, contemporary ballet, and brought it together. And what you found fascinating in that performance, which I attended, was that even though these are 2 different extremes, they had a lot of similarities. It was all about dance, and it was all about rhythm, and it was all about telling a story that kind of floated around. So that gave her an anchor into Atlanta. As she was flying in and out of Atlanta, and Lori has a very accomplished background as an artist. As she was coming in and out of Atlanta, she saw that she was not contributing to this new area that she had called home as an artist. And she also saw that there was a need to kind of build social capital. Here in our city, our fair city, one of the challenges we have is because we're divided by suburbs, we are all considered isolated communities. You know, you always say where you live, Marietta or Buckhead or Alpharetta. You never say, I live in the region. So you have kind of these silo thinking. Earlier in the luncheon, when they talked about the transportation, people work differently from where they live. So there's not that mingling. There's also that book that was written a few years ago about edge cities, and here in Cumberland Mall we have that, where people go work in an area. There are 30,000 people that work there, and in a day it's full and thriving, and then they leave and there's nothing there. It's just left. So that creates a window to create social capital. So what she had this idea, she wanted to do something, make a difference. But in starting any non-for-profit, you always have challenges. One, in the traditional realm, if you want to create theater or dance or whatever, is you have to have the physical facilities. You have to have a theater, you have to have a mechanism to sell tickets, you have to have an ability to draw audiences, and you have to have a way for people to know that you're there. She didn't have anything of that. So what did she do? Everybody said, you can't do it. First of all, you know, you don't have the money, you have the backing, you can't do it. And what did she do? She did it. So she decided that how is it that you can bring her artistic view into the community and really draw people out. And her perspective is really different. She, instead of bringing people into a theater, she goes out into community spaces and looks at the architecture and looks at the relationships between nature and science and all the different dynamics, and then creates a performance around that, and then draws people in and has people connect to that. So it's an experience. It's something that it's completely different way of thinking than the traditional performing world model that you look at. So the first thing is that. The second person that I talked to was a guy named Rick Carlvin, and he is the general manager, and he is, where Lori is the outside person, kind of the visionary, the charismatic leader that brought together the group. Rick is really the internal person. He's the one that created the structure, created it as a nonprofit, organized the board, also the logistics of putting things together, and also making sure that as an organization they have some sort of form of structure. So he's the inside guy. The next person that I looked at was one of the dancers. They have a core group of 5 dancers. Even though depending on the projects and the performances, they bring in different dancers and they bring different folks to work in different capacities. One thing that really struck me by Rick, the inside guy, was he said when you create nonprofits, you really create an asset for the community. And you want to create something that is going to contribute to the quality of life and really make a difference in that. In this question of the organization, you really saw, or what I saw which really struck me was there was a certain entrepreneur spirit. And entrepreneurship in the public sector is something that is right now a common thread in the literature, because as our conference theme talks about, living in an environment of lack, you have to think, how is it that we can create? I am always leery of using the out-of-the-box question, because, you know, there's an old saying, you know, is the glass half full or is it half empty? And I always say, well, who said I was thirsty? So these are, I think, the questions that we need to be asking as public administrators and as people that are looking at being the future of our government and institution of our community. You, after looking at all these different aspects and interviewing them and then attending the performances, there were really kind of 4 different things that I think are good lessons learned that you can apply cross-range, not only in the performing arts, but also in different nonprofit organizations. The first thing, I think we all have to see ourselves as being entrepreneurial. How is it that we're able to break and look around outside the proverbial box? When I was working on my dissertations, one area that was really big and was really questioned was there was a policy called reinventing government, how you can you know, kind of cut red tape, make a government that works better and costs less. So look at innovations. I think that's the first thing, is public entrepreneurship. The second thing is innovative funding. Instead of having all the people that come up to them and say, no, you can't do it, know that it's a limitation, they have been very innovative in their funding. One area is that instead of just simply going around and sticking their hand out and asking for money, they actually create products that make the money. One product that they make is they do commission works, where a different ballet company or different dance company asks them to come in and create some sort of dance or routine in order for them to perform or to share with another company. Another area that they're also very profitable and helpful is they create these and they call them summer intensives, where they bring in new dancers or people that want to improve their dance skills, and they can work and learn from these people that have been in the dance world. They really work at gloATL to create these cross collaborations, where a lot of times you forget that every problem and every issue we have been dealt with has been out there before. And it's much easier to come together and work together and share ideas than to simply going out and, you know, sticking down your own and not knowing where it's going to end up. Another area which I think we are seeing an increase in the nonprofit world, and one that a lot of times there's not enough emphasis, is using available infrastructures. Look at, right now, I showed that video. It's on YouTube, it's virtual, and I was able to bring this, and it was something that it would have taken me hundreds of thousands of dollars to do it even 10, 15 years ago. But there it was done with a little flip camera, put together online, and they communicated an idea to you. What is that? Social media. The interconnected. Sherry Tuckle wrote a book which is called Alone Together, which came out last year, which we're seeing a phenomena in our communities, and I see it now with all of you with your iPhones and your Blackberries, which are acting like you're paying attention to my presentation, but I'm sure that you're looking at something very important. You're connected with this medium, this technology, over to the outside world, but you're not connected to the people around you. And it's a phenomenon called alone together, where we're together, but you're really not connected. But though, instead of looking at that question that you're really disconnected from people around you, we are social creatures, and technology is not really dividing us. It's enhancing what we are anyway. We're social people. We want to be people with people that are like us. We want to share an experience. Back to that idea of glow. So using social media in order to create a niche and bring people that kind of follow that tradition. And then the last thing, I think, which is the most important lesson, and where I always get excited in new organizations, and Herbert Kaufman wrote a lot about kind of the evolution and the cycle of public institutions, and he wrote a book that was The Organizations Never Die. They go through a life cycle. And a lot of times these young organizations that come in are filling a niche. And a lot of times we have to realize that, yes, organizations close and they end, but we have to keep an environment where you're creating innovation, creating new and exciting different things. And the old Nike's commercial goes, just do it. And I think that's the last lesson that I think is very important to look at, and you see in the Glow Atlanta. Tom Peters, a great management consultant, has a great line which I think is very appropriate when you're looking at innovation. He says, innovation comes from pissed off people. So then don't let your frustration or your haters hold you back. Go out there and do something. Don't be that guy in the corner, that lady in the corner that complains and says all these different things. Go out there and actually do something. And I think that is kind of the key to look at. Thanks again for being here, and I really appreciate being back to my alma mater. And if you have any questions or any comments or want to see my paper, I'll be glad to share with you. And let's go and enjoy the rest of the conference. Thank you.